ways why fasting is bullshit. Stay tuned. Hello everybody, I talk about 3 to 2 subjects, maybe 5, and I go into more detail. This subject, a lot of people are going to give hate because of that hook I just give. Little disclaimer, I don't think fasting is totally bullshit. I think there's good qualities about it, and I did fasting, so chill on the hate comments. But let's get into it. Could cause eating disorders. Fasting could cause eating disorders. If I have a client that is willing to do fasting and she or he has a eating disorder in the past, or they track calories and they're a control freak with tracking calories, they eat less even though they shouldn't because they feel fat or something like that mindset, I won't let my client track, because then it can actually go into a spiral of, oh shit, let me fast for 8 hours, let me fast for 10 hours, let me actually not eat for a day, let me not eat for 2 days, 3 days. And this can be really detrimental for people who are who is anorexic, who are already have an eating disorder, and that can really make it more damaging over time and actually put pressure on that eating disorder, trying to develop more into it in that eating disorder. Especially fasting promotes not eating for a long period of time. If you talk about intermittent fasting is more than 5 hours, but still it's the same concept, similar, but not the same, of course, and can cause eating disorders. So I just want to get some clarity for that. Could cause weight loss, but not the good kind. So fasting and you're gonna wait for 8 hours, 7 hours or more, because, well, that's the typical traditional fast. You probably do, I don't know fasting terms, like 16 by 18, I'm not too sure. But you will usually eat in the specific window to actually snack on. Will you lose weight? Yes. Would it be good? No. But would you lose weight initially? Yes, because you're just eating less calories typically. If you have all these foods in in this specific window, not all just junk food, but actually half and half. So if you have junk and processed, you're still eating less calories possibly, because you're eating such a big amount of food in a small amount of time, and fasting throughout the next day. So would it be easier if you lose weight because you're not eating as much? Yes, that's called a calorie deficit. Would you lose weight on other ways? Yes, calorie deficit. So yes, fasting will cause the calorie deficit, but the problem with that is you're not going to hit your macronutrients, your protein, fats, and your micronutrients, because it's such a large amount of portion to eat in one specific window. You're not seeing a woman who is 130 pounds eating 2,000 calories in this 2-hour window. You're not going to see that because there's so much food for that that woman, especially if she has to eat 130 grams of protein. That's bloat, like that can cause bloatation, that can cause gassy, you could be farting, you can increase your waist way too much, and that can cause problems down the road. It's really hard to try to hit your protein targets and also eat this amount of food in this specific window. And also, let's go to the topic of losing weight. You're just losing weight. Weight is a total mass, or just weight is a total force of gravity putting on something. So a scale. If I weigh 200 pounds and I lose 10 pounds in a week, yes, you probably lost a little bit of fat and definitely a lot of water, but perhaps if you sleep or shitty, you lost a lot of muscle. Or if you do this for a long period of time, you lose 30 pounds of fasting, you could lose 15 pounds of muscle, which you're fatter than before because you lost all that muscle mass that you originally had before. So it's no good losing 30 pounds on a scale if 15 pounds of that muscle, or even 25 of that, is muscle. So all guys want you to understand that it's very hard to hit these macro to micronutrients, especially if you're going to lose all this weight and it's mostly muscle. And also, especially if your body fat is higher than before because you lost mostly muscle. So you got to keep that in mind. This slow metabolism correlates with muscle loss. So if I get a client, or if I get people on those videos like, oh, I lost weight, I lost 30 pounds, Drake, by fasting, it's not total bullshit. I think you're stupid. Well, yes, I agree. You will lose weight, but it's not good weight typically, especially if you're not willing to eat or stuff yourself, because you're eating in a small amount of time. Stuff yourself and eat 200 grams of protein in a small amount of time. You're gonna lose muscle mass, and if you only excuse me, if you weigh like 200 pounds, you only can get 100 grams before you feel lethargic and bloated, then you're not going to make any progress in the weight room. You're going to regress and you're going to lose muscle mass. And therefore, you're going to have a slow metabolism. You're not going to burn more calories, then you have to eat less and less and less. Therefore, you have to be in a lower calorie deficit. Because you have a slow metabolism, and you will actually probably get fed off 1,500 calories because you're losing all that muscle mass. I don't care how much weight you lost on a scale, how much body fat do you lose compared to muscle. It's about those two things, muscle to fat ratio. Of course, water's in the middle. Water is going to be very dependable. It's like a keto diet. You hear people in the first week lose 7 to 10 pounds, maybe just 5, because it's mostly water. And also, the reason why keto diet works because it mostly goes to whole foods, and also it gives you a little bit of motivation at the start because you will lose body fat and you will lose weight on the scale in that first week. But besides the point, you will get slow metabolism if you lose a lot of muscle mass, because you will burn less calories. Muscle helps you burn calories, has this effect to actually make you get up more, so you're probably going to be less active because of that. Then you have to do more cardio, or you have to build more muscle, but then after that small amount of eating, you probably have to eat more calories. So many factors. Fasting's not the best for this, and you might have to spread out your meals most likely. Hard to eat protein intake. Very hard to eat protein intake. If I get a 200-pound individual to tell him to eat 200 pounds of protein, that's going to be super stuff. Super stuff. He's going to be super stuff. He's not able to eat 200 grams of protein. And if I get that woman who is 130 pounds, she's not going to eat 130 grams of protein in 2 hours. It's very hard for that woman, for that small woman. So I want you guys to really consider that. Even though you're fasting, you might lose weight, it's not the best approach for most people. We're not talking about you. You can't just be selfish and thinking, oh, my community of people who did fasting love it and actually helps me, blah, 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 blah. It's not going to help the majority of people to their regular fitness goals. People who are not fasting fanatics, people who are not trying to just lose body fat and be healthy, And it's easier ways, definitely, to lose body fat than just fast. And it's easy, I don't blame people for that woman or man who wants to fast, because it's super simple. Just wait for a long time and eat everything in this specific window, and you will lose body fat, which is at first, yes, but then you will lose muscle because you're not eating protein. Then you'll be unhealthy because you're eating shit, most likely. If you're not, then you're still not going to get your protein intake if it's so hard to get so. And then your micronutrients, and you probably cause bloating, digestive issues, and a lot more problems down the road. So yes, protein intake will be hard to hit when fasting, especially if you can only handle like 50 grams per meal. If you're really bloated after that or effed up, then fasting is not a viable choice. Okay, now this is the big thing I want to talk about. 5 and 6. Misconceptions about fasting and how I would do it with a client. A lot of misconception about the fitness world because it's about marketing and capitalism, money, of course. And this misconception like, oh, I fast for 8 hours today and I can eat donuts and pizzas. And you probably see these fitness YouTubers eating donuts and pizzas, and they got 6-pack abs and they're lifting up their shirt. That's not realistic. Don't listen to that. Just because of the fact that they probably put in the macronutrients. They're definitely not doing that consistently. Yeah, keep in mind, calories in, calories out, calories in versus calories out still applies. Just because you're eating a specific time frame because you starve yourself throughout the day for 8 or even 10 hours doesn't mean it's not going to apply. It still counts, and it still will affect your daily expenditure. Because if you're not eating throughout the day and not being as active and you're only burning 2,000 calories, but your old maintenance was 3,000 calories, then it will affect that and you'd probably be in surplus. Or if you're eating processed food in your diet, that is very calorie dense, and you're not getting the protein to satisfy your hunger. So you have a tendency to overeat or binge on more processed shit. And guess what processed shit have? More calories in smaller amount of portions. If I get a plate of food, most people can't finish a dozen eggs compared to 6 Pop-Tarts. It's super easy to eat the Pop-Tarts and the eggs. So you gotta keep in mind what's calorie dense, what's not. How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna fit this in? Is this really gonna help me? Is this person lying? most likely the person that you're talking to or listening to is lying about fasting. Of course, you can even fact check me if you don't believe me. Fact check me, is fasting really beneficial? It makes a lot of sense. People trying to capitalize on this and trying to make money, and it makes a lot of sense for fitness YouTubers trying to get your money, because guess what? If they're selling their cookbooks or programs after using this quote fasting works, then you probably have a likely to buy it because they have six-pack abs and they know what they're talking about, which is not the case for most. So no, fasting is not eating all this processed shit in a small amount of portion and lose body fat. At first, it might work because calories in versus calories out, calories in versus calories out, laws of thermodynamics still applies. And yes, you'll be in a calorie deficit, but over time, if you're eating more processed shit, you're gonna have more calories. And then over time, you're gonna be in a calorie surplus, and even worse, losing more muscle mass because you're not eating protein intake, and therefore you'll be fatter on the same amount of calories. So therefore, fasting is not beneficial. And now, the big discussion before that, people put hate comments and saying, fasting works for me, oh my god, I lose 30 pounds, oh my god, getting muscle on fasting, is what I really think about fasting. If I get a client who wants to just go away from food, or if I get that bodybuilder who wants to get away from food, who doesn't want to think about food, who just wants to eat, not stuff themselves for 5 meals a day, who doesn't have an eating disorder, who wants to just disconnect with food and the neediest of food. Because you do have to cook it, you have to think about it, you have to think about that meal time, and you have to get those calories in, especially if you eat a lot. So if I get the client who just doesn't want to think about, who just wants to eat, who wants to chill out, then I'll totally do fasting. I used to do fasting because I didn't want this problem of me thinking about food 24/7. It got into a certain point that I was eating 5 meals a day. I was thinking about my next meal 2 hours, 3 hours. I was like, okay, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? I'm going to fantasize. What am I going to eat? It's just got this ridiculous cycle of me thinking, and I didn't realize that maybe I should do fasting to disconnect from these foods. So fasting has a beneficial for disconnection. There are actually studies over there that our ancestors used to do fasting because it wasn't a lot of food, of course, and there wasn't a lot of food going around because it was caveman time. It also was just, it was a long time ago and there wasn't a lot of food, places like that. And they used to do fasting to also for spiritual practice as well. So to disconnect, to not think about it, to not worry about food. And that really helped them over time to disconnect with food. Is a lot more spiritual practices to fast than actually doing it as a diet routine. So if I have a client who wants to go on a fast to disconnect food, who's very healthy from the beginning, I totally would do that. But if I have a client who thinks dieting is good to lose body fat, I will not let that client to do so, because most likely they got that from fitness YouTubers who have six-pack abs thinking they know what they're talking about, but really they don't, because they're making 2 million views on the video they're watching right now, money off of your watch time. Okay, and I'm telling you straightforward that is not true. Fasting, you can't really lose a lot of body fat, and if you do, good job. But guess what? I guarantee you feel like shit. I guarantee you lose a lot of muscle mass, and I guarantee you're not as healthier than before. So I just wanted to say, fasting is good when disconnecting with food, but it's not good when doing it as a diet. That's my final statement. I'm going to talk about the summary, so what I really think about fasting. I just say that. Misconceptions about fasting, how I do it with a client. So pretty much, it's not eating a small amount of time. You're not eating all the shit within this time. If I would do it with a client, I'll probably at least do 2 meals and do intermittent fasting, at least trying to get their protein intake high, or trying to see why I want to do it, but most of the time I won't do it with the client. Hard to eat protein intake. That's very difficult. If you get a 200-pound meal, to eat 200 pounds of protein in like 1 to 2 hours is very difficult. Protein is the most satisfying macronutrients out there, and I dare you to try it for 1 day. I bet you can do it, and if you do it, it was a struggle. And so Metallism fasting, you might lose weight from the beginning, which that's going to correlate to weight loss. And if you got that person who lose 30 pounds, good job, but they probably lost a lot of muscle, therefore their body fat percentage is higher than muscle ratio. It could cause weight loss, not the good kind, muscle, and could cause eating disorders. Yes, if I got a client who's have an eating disorder, or they're really control freaks about the calories in versus calories out, they're thinking about, oh my god, I'm gonna get fat off of this, I won't do fasting. They're just gonna promote that, starving themselves and etc. I won't suggest it. So this is No BS Nutrition or Drake. I want to say fasting can be good or bad, but for most people, 90% of people, I won't do fasting with. Therefore, fasting is bullshit for 90%. But for that 10%, fasting is not bullshit because it's actually good satisfaction of disconnecting with food. So is fasting good or bad? Is fasting bullshit? You guys gotta decide for that for yourself. For me, it depends for everything. Like everything else, it depends. So that's really it for today's video. Today was episode 27. I reached 100 subscribers today, so thank you guys. Thank you for all the love and support. If you want more video or content like this, please comment below. Probably a lot of people are gonna comment below on this one. I already predicted. So if you're still watching, thank you. You're my favorite, and goodbye.